There is a very complex science to fine-tuning these bikes. For the majority of riders, including myself, it's far over our heads, but certainly not impossible to learn. But whenever you do hear someone who knows what they are doing talk about fine-tuning bikes, it often leaves you confused and wondering if you should be fine-tuning your bike. In today's video, we're going to go over when you should fine-tune your bike, if it really matters, and when you're just wasting your time. Fine-tuning a bike is simply getting a few extra horsepower out of the bike or getting it to handle at its absolute best. Some people fine-tune their bike to track and weather conditions on a daily basis to squeeze out every bit of performance on their bike. Things like adjusting the carburetor, if your bike has one, fine-tuning the clickers, air pressure, sag on the suspension, tire pressure, fork height, bar rotation, and much more. But when is all this fine-tuning really necessary? What it all comes down to is where you're at in skill level. A common mistake riders can make is trying to make their bike comfortable to them when really they should be getting comfortable to their bike. If you are just learning to ride as a beginner, don't worry too much about making adjustments on your bike. All you need to do is log in some seat time and get an overall feel for how dirt bikes handle and learn the basics, especially prioritizing bike control. Once you're starting to get the basics down and you know you're hitting a few jumps and picking up more speed in the corners, then it wouldn't hurt to do a basic tune on your bike. What I mean by a basic tune is getting your rear shock sag set to your weight, adjusting the clickers on your forks and shock to your riding style, and getting the handlebars and handlebar levers to a comfortable position. If your bike has a carburetor, you can also do some basic tuning to that as well. All this can be done by following your owner's manual and is relatively simple. I even have a handful of videos explaining how to do these, which I will link in the description. A basic tune is all you're going to need for a long time, so when is it worth fine-tuning? Once your skill level becomes higher than the performance of your bike is when you can start fine-tuning. Once you are using every bit of horsepower on your bike and feel like you need more is when fine-tuning can be helpful. Usually, this happens when you start competing at a professional level. So, if you are at a professional level, then you can start putting more focus on tuning your bike. But up until that point, put all your time and energy into focusing and improving your riding. Let's take for example Rider A and Rider B. Both Rider A and Rider B have 2 hours at the track. Rider A does a few laps and feels a little bit awkward at first, but keeps riding and knocks off the rust and then feels on top of his game. He then figures out what he's bad at and begins putting focused practice on just that. Rider B does a few laps and feels a little awkward as well, and thinks the bike is what's causing him to feel that way. So, he rides back to his truck and starts adjusting things on the bike. He does a few more laps and feels other adjustments are needed. After repeating this process a few times, he finally feels like the bike might pass for the riding conditions on that day. But he's filled up all of his time working on his bike and has to go home. And when he returns to the track the next time, obviously the conditions will be completely different and he'll repeat this process again. Both riders have the same amount of time, but one will be a pro in no time, and one will forever be spinning in circles, blaming his bike. Before we end this video, I want to be a little bit more open-minded to the fact that some people really enjoy and love the art of fine-tuning bikes, and that's totally cool, because everyone enjoys dirt bikes for a different reason, and you should definitely lean into the reason as to why you enjoy dirt bikes. Not really. If you don't improve your riding, you're a terrible person, and the world is likely going to come to an end if we don't have more improved dirt bike riders. So improve your riding, okay? This is coming from a guy who hasn't rode in like 3 months. I'll fix you one day, I promise.